Hi, all you lovely creative people. This is June from Oaken Witch Lane Designs, and I'm just going to give you a quick update on how I finished my mask that I started in a live stream a couple of days ago. And I did give two short YouTube video updates. So last you had seen her in especially one of those short updates was that she was painted black with some gesso, and I was fixing some areas. Since the live stream and those shorts, I added a nose and I put some more paper clay around here just to fill out her face, and I fixed her lips and I added a little bit of a chin. I then waited for that to dry. I painted it with black gesso, so everything was black. Oh, and I also used, I think you know this, I changed her ears to be polymer clay ears. The paper clay was just not working, and it was making me a little crazy, so I said, okay, took them off, and I made two polymer clay ears for her. Painted everything, like I said, black gesso, let it dry, and then I put a coat of this Deco Art weathered wood crackle medium over the whole thing very thickly and gave that some time to dry. I wanted a little bit of a crackle effect on this piece, and if not a crackle effect, then a little bit of texture. She is a queen of trees. She's a queen beech. Her name is Queen Bree Beech. And so I thought a little wood texture would be very nice. It turned out to be very subtle, which is what I like it to be. I don't know if you can see it. You can see some here and a little under her nose and over here. Very subtle. It wasn't very bold. And that's because after I put the crackle medium, the first coat of paint I used was this folk art, and it's called linen. I put that all over it, and I put a pretty thick coat so there was more crackles. But or but sometimes I didn't want it to be too crackly. So if you keep adding paint, coats of paint, a lot of the crackles go away. Then this color was a little too plain for me, a little too dull, so I livened it up by a wash of Deco Art Americana Antique Gold. Very light wash, slapped it on, and then I put some of this Pan Pastel Artist Pastels Ultra Soft. I don't know what color is this. This is red iron oxide on her cheeks, a little on her nose, on her chin, just to give her a little blush effect. And then I went over everything with this, again, Folk Art Home Decor Antique Wax in the brown color. This is brown. And I gave that a quick wash. I took some off. I put some more back on, took it off. I used this antique wax a lot in my painting the stems that I made for all of the leaves. So I kept the brown tones all in one tonal, tone U, tone, whatever. Okay, so we got her face to the part where I really liked it, and I was in the middle of making the crown, and I used this metal, I think they call it metal ribbon, for her crown. I had two pieces left after the tray that I made. And so I took the bigger of the two pieces and I made sure that it fit around. It doesn't go all the way to the edge, but I made the crown because I needed to know how far down it was going to come on her head. So I started to make that. But then I did something that was a little scary even for me. I knew that I was going to put all of these leaves that I took the time to put on wire. They're all on wire, because these fabric leaves that I had that I took and I cut out to look like beech leaves, they don't bend very easily. Paper bends so much easier, but these things do not keep. If you bent it without the wire, it wouldn't keep its shape. So one of the two steps, there was three steps, that I should say, three things that I was doing simultaneously. I glued all the leaves to the stems. I started to make the crown and play with it to see what I wanted and what I didn't want. And I realized at this point that I would have to be gluing all of these stems onto her head. And it was just going to get very messy because when you're putting, or when I'm putting leaves on the top of a head, it's very hard to figure where you want to go. So then I did something that I was even concerned about because I've never done it before, was I cut off the top of her head. And I filled it. I don't think you can see it, but you can see it better from the back. All of this is underneath. This is a piece of felt that I glued on for support. And this is a wooden popsicle stick because I just wanted, this is where she gets hung from, and I didn't want it to go into the floral foam. I cut a piece of floral foam to fit inside of her head. I don't know if I can show it to you where it starts, but it starts right about where this, right about over here. And I then try to glue the floral foam into the back of the mask and shape it to look like the top of the head, which was very interesting, very, very messy. And this floral foam wasn't really sticking. The fabric tack was melting it. I didn't want to use hot glue because I wasn't sure what hot glue was going to do. So I ended up using wood glue. And to make sure that it stayed there and to give it some more stability, I did cover it with black felt and glued it in over here. So there's, I don't know if you can see that, there's more stability over here so this doesn't come off, and all around the edges. And then what I did was I painted everything about 1/4 inch up from where the crown lays on her head. I painted it in a rust color. I think it's called cinnamon bark. It's Decawart Americana cinnamon bark. I don't have it here, of course. I painted the whole top of her skull. That way, if you can see in through any of the leaves, it doesn't show this color or white or any other color. It blends in, so it doesn't, the skull doesn't show up. Although I think I did a pretty good job of covering it, so you really can't see that much, any part of the, you can see it a little over here, the skull. Okay. And I wasn't even sure if that was going to work, and it was giving me a little bit of a hard time, but thankfully it did finally dry, it did work, and I was very happy because then with these leaves on wire, I could poke it into the head. If I didn't like where it was, I could take it out and poke it someplace else. And when I liked where it was, I took it out and then I put some tacky glue on the tip and put it back in the foam because I found tacky glue worked well for this part of the project, and I didn't want to use any more of the fabric tack because that was getting very messy. Okay, so I put these front leaves, her bangs, down first, and then I temporarily tacked her crown on. But before I did that, I just want to show you what I did. I painted this. Well, first I tried to gold leaf it, and it came out really nice, but it was far too bright, and I really just didn't like how bright the color was. So I toned it down with some of this Luminaire Sunset Gold. I also put some Luminaire Bright Gold on it. I used my Vintage Gold Art Alchemy metallic wax. I was using everything just to give it different tonal effects. I don't know if you can see, pretty much you can see there's a lot of different tones on the crown. I didn't want it one solid color. I also put some of the brown wax on it too. I put rhinestones that I had bought for another project that didn't work out, so I used them, but these were crystal rhinestones, clear with a nice finish. It didn't fit, so I just used, and this was a hint from Crystal Tischer from Rustic Angel Designs, I just used the alcohol inks and colored them with alcohol inks. And I glued the stones down. I had another brass stamping that I put on top of it. I don't know if you can see it. You could probably, let's see, you could probably see it a little bit better over here just to give it some more depth. I then took a piece of beautiful ribbon that I've had for a very long time, and just one piece, and it fit. So I said, good, I'm going to use it for that. I ran it across the bottom of, where did it go? I ran it across the bottom over here, And then I had orange rhinestones that, the, the good ones, what do you call it from? I forgot. All right. Swarovski, I'm probably saying that wrong, whatever, but you know what I'm trying to say. And they were too bright, so I used more of that alcohol ink. I think it was ginger, and I just colored them a different color, and they took the color beautifully. It's very deep, it's very rich, I love it, and glued them down. So with the mask in place, I mean, not the mask, the crown in place, I was able to put all of the leaves and situate them. I had to make more stems. Oh, for her eyes, I used pieces of ribbon, little pieces of ribbon here, and I colored it first black, and then with that cinnamon bark from one of, I think it's Deco Watt. I should have brought it over, I'm sorry. And then I had a brass stamping because I thought it felt like it needed a little bit more, so I took it and I cut it in half and I glued one on each side. I also gave her a beauty mark. If you saw my Facebook post, she didn't have the beauty mark, but this was another one of the rhinestones that I colored. This was a little bit lighter. Excuse me, I'm sorry, a lighter ink. So I did that, and I just decided to glue it there. And then I had these chains and wooden beads. And the part about these chains down here was they are that greenish dark brown, dark gold, but it had the green tone to it. None of the rest of it had the green tone, so I had to color them. And I decided that I just snipped off pieces of the chain. I used the wax, and I used some of this paint, and I put it in my hand, and I put the chain in my hand, and I started rubbing it, and it worked pretty well, except that my hands looked absolutely like I was in a movie, Goldfinger, because I was totally covered in gold, and I had to go out and run errands, and I was really hoping that I could get all of it out. So the next time I did it, I definitely put gloves on. And then I strung the wooden beads onto the chain and just measured it in the way that I wanted. And I glued it to the back, and I put a little piece of felt over it because I wanted it to look neat. I like having my backs as neat as possible because a lot of times people will look at the back, and I think it shows that you have a little, it looks nicer. Let me put it that way. Now, all of these leaves are bendable. So if I change my mind, I can bend them, and that's because of the wire that I attached to the back. I'm telling, these leaves are so tough that even my fabric tack is not working so well on it. So I don't know, I shouldn't say tough. They have some kind of a finish on it. So I do have to glue some of them again just to make sure. But that's it. So this project took a total of 18 hours, give or take, and it's probably more of the taking because it probably took a little bit longer than that. I made twigs with wire. That's another thing, just to put some in. Oh, and I'm sorry. And I also put some feathers that I had and just softened it up a little bit. I like having feathers in when I make these fairy creatures. I think it adds something to it. So it took 18 hours to make all told. I think it took a little bit longer because sometimes I don't know if you should include in the total making all the playing you're doing to make sure that you like what it is, because there was a different band on here, and then I really didn't like it, and then I found this ribbon that I've always loved and wanted to put it on the project, so I used that ribbon. But it took 18 hours. So I just wanted to show you what Queen Bree Beech ended up looking, because I know the last time, if you were on a live, it didn't look so good at the end. But I think she's improved. I think she's very pretty, and I'm hanging her up on my wall as a guardian spirit for my house. So I'm pretty much in love with her, and that's about it. So until I see you again, have fun creating beauty.